Okay, you could start whenever.
Welcome back to another episode of the Born Again podcast. I'm Katie.
And I'm Joe.
We're an ex-Christian couple learning how to live on the other side of religion. On this podcast, we'll talk about our journey, reasons we left the church, things we're going through now, and ways we've grown since.
So good morning, everyone.
Hope you guys are all doing well. It's Sunday morning over here by us.
It's Sunday morning for us.
And it's really nice out, and we're just enjoying talking about our life and our goals and the future instead of going to church.
Yeah, it's like so much more empowering than going to church. I feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least in our experience.
Right. So today we're going to talk about Pascal's wager. Basically, the question, should I just believe in God for life insurance, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like Pascal's wager officially is basically the argument that it is in one's best interest to behave as if God exists, since the possibility of hell or a possibility of punishment in hell outweighs any advantage in not believing in God. So I don't know. How would you put it? How did you understand it?
Well, the first time I ever heard this was in high school, and a friend of mine told me about it, actually, because at the time we liked to talk about, I guess, doctrine and what we thought was apologetics with other friends who were non-Christian. And we liked, just kind of debating. I don't know why I enjoyed this, because I really hate it now. But my friend brought up Pascal's wager, and at the time I understood it to mean, why not believe in God and Jesus? Because if you do, and heaven and all of it is real, then you'll go to heaven. But if if it's not real, basically nothing will happen. You won't have any consequences, so why not?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, at the time in high school, I was like, that's a really, really good argument. I really like that. And I don't know, basically just, that was a real reassurance for my faith.
Yeah.
I guess, I did believe it to be true, but then also it was kind of like, if I have any doubts, I can always think of this, Pascal's wager. Why not? If it's not real, then nothing bad's going to happen to me. It's not like there's a hell for not believing in the other side.
Yeah, right.
It's strange.
Satan's hell is heaven.
Yeah. It's strange now because, looking back, we're going to talk about this the whole podcast. There are consequences to believing in and having faith. Yeah. And also what we're going to talk about next, I think, is, do we want to base a belief out of a fear?
Right.
Yeah.
There definitely are consequences, and I didn't understand that either, because I was kind of in your same position where I think my dad said that argument to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My dad was always.
How old were you when you heard it?
I probably 16 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what we were talking about, but it doesn't matter. But he was kind of just saying that, might as well believe in him, because if he is real, then you get to go to heaven. And if God's not real, then what do you lose?
Yeah.
We're a better person. So that was kind of my understanding of it too.
Yeah.
You win either way. And yeah, that made total sense to me. But yeah, now it's it seems like that's a really weird way to live, a really weird decision to make, because it's you're completely basing the most important thing of your life, your eternity, your spirituality, making that decision based on fear.
Yeah.
Fear of hell.
Why, if you're asking the question, shouldn't I believe just in case, what's the just in case for? Just in case you get sent to hell.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's strange now looking back and realizing that for us, we were a Christian, we believed in the Bible, that the Bible brings up hell. They basically bring that into our life. We wouldn't have known about a hell if we weren't Christian, without God.
Yeah.
And so God has this place for us that he invented and created, and we're going to go there if we don't believe in his gospel message. And I think that I never noticed before how weird it is that we are, using that argument and basing some of our faith on fear. Well, there is a consequence to not believing, that's hell. And that really, I think that really kept me in Christianity for a lot longer than maybe I would have been if hell hadn't existed.
Yeah, for sure. Because, that was something that we, kind of struggled with for a long time was a fear of hell.
Even after leaving
Yeah.
the church, it was still like, I'm so scared that God's gonna strike me down with lightning. And then when I would have that thought, I'd be like, that sucks that my mind would go there, I
Right.
guess. Like, why do I
Right
have this
away.
image of God? Like, I'm so scared of him. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the fear of God was really drilled into us. And I think that God, even if you feel his love, he's super powerful, and that's scary.
Right.
Like, I mean, he invented, I mean, he has hell and he'll send us there. So like, that's like, it's scary. Even if
Right.
you don't like think of God as an evil being, I think that it's subconsciously put in our minds. Like, how could it not be? Like,
Yeah.
how can you believe in God without the hell?
Right.
There's
Yeah.
gotta be some of that there in your head.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like the fear of God is
Yeah.
supposed to be a good thing.
Yeah.
The church tells you like we should have a fear of God, which I mean, if you believe what the Bible says about God, then yeah, he's definitely someone to be afraid of because he's wild.
It's wild.
But yeah, so yeah, it just seems weird. Like that argument off the bat seems so weird and like self-denigrating or belittling to yourself to like say, well, I'm really scared of this now because someone told me about this God.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I might as well like just in case I might as well believe in him.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this a little bit this morning, but what kind of dad wants you to love him out of fear?
Yeah.
Like think about a regular dad, like your father, your earthly father. I like putting it in terms of like real life analogies because it's easier to relate. I know that God isn't human, but if he's supposed to be the source of all love and,
Yeah.
whatever, like, would you ever imagine your earthly father to be like, you have to love me or I'm going to put you in prison forever?
Right.
I don't
I
feel
mean-
like you would equate that with love. You'd be like, dang it, dad. Like, do you have to? Like, why?
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that does happen sometimes, but when that happens, that's like child abuse.
Yes. And you
know?
don't think of him as a loving father.
No.
And,
He's like
and
a
other people
criminal.
wouldn't describe him as a loving
Right.
father.
I think that was so helpful to us, that like realization we had that if we take God's love when we put it on a human, we would think that human is like really abusive or
Yeah.
like holding you hostage or something, you know,
Yes.
more than actually being giving and loving.
But people can't see that with God because they don't ascribe him the same, rules or morals that we live by.
Right.
They think he's like above it all. But
Right.
I think that's so interesting. Like you can't put someone outside of morals. Like there still has to be some like baseline.
Yeah.
What do you believe is good, and do you think it's okay to live out of fear and
Right.
all of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So consequences. I think that this is a common question. Well, why
What's the
not? Why
downside?
not believe? Yeah. What's a downside of religion? And, I think that there are times when maybe there aren't any downsides for a believer.
Yeah. I think you're right.
But maybe that's because they're not, I don't want to say this to sound like condescending, but maybe they're not wholeheartedly committed or, super intense.
Yeah.
We were pretty committed and pretty intense Christians, I would say.
Right.
And I remember reading in a book once that sometimes or most of the time the most sincere believers get hurt the most.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that's common like with like any kind of thing. If you're super intensely involved in something, you can get hurt the most
For
from
sure.
it, because you're really invested.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're right, because we were super invested and like that was the kind of the center of our life. And that's why this like deconversion process has been difficult,
Yes.
and like complicated and really, has its tendrils deep into every part of our lives. But whereas someone who kind of just goes to church on Sunday and like doesn't really think about it too much the rest of the week or whatever, maybe they're like a Sunday Christian or just believe because their family believed. Mm-hmm. You're right. Maybe the consequences for them aren't nearly as significant as they were for someone like us. Mm-hmm. But that being said, like the Bible is super clear. If you're lukewarm, that's like an abomination to the Christian God.
Mm-hmm. And we talk
and
about
so
that a lot. I think that's a verse that we really latched onto and
Yeah.
why we were intense.
We were trying to not be lukewarm. And I feel like, that's what a model Christian should act like, I guess. And so if you're just going on Sundays, then like, what's the point of believing?
Yeah, what
like,
kind
does
of-
that count?
Are you getting benefits from that?
Right.
Even.
Yeah. Is God going to welcome you into heaven?
Are
if
you truly saved?
right. Yeah. Anyway, I mean,
So anyway, I was just thinking about some Christians who maybe aren't fully invested, and I think that they could they could possibly be getting the benefit of a community and I don't know, some good feels.
yeah.
But like the more intense you get, the more consequences there are. I
Yeah.
think like when you read the Bible, you realize that like it's pretty serious. There's like a lot of parts, like even in the New Testament, like when Paul is talking, he's a really serious Christian and he's really committed. And I think he has like a lot of rules, I guess, that are even from Jesus. But now that I think about it,
It
but
like
that
governs his life.
yeah,
his, like,
it really,
belief does.
yes. And I think that we were following a lot of those. You know, we were, like we said, we took it really seriously,
Yeah.
everything that he said in the Bible.
So yeah, the downsides, I guess, that we're going to be talking about today are based on someone who is more in our position, who like, yeah, really, really, really took it seriously. The one thing I thought about when we were deconverting was that, like, I thought about Pascal's wager and thought, well, is it better, even though I don't like really believe it, is it better to just kind of like still try to believe it just for the benefit of not going to hell? No, we considered that. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that like your faith is faith. And like for me, I never, it wasn't like I decided to stop being Christian one day. You know, it was, for a long time, I was trying to hold on to my faith, and I was really trying to believe in God. Like I was praying and asking God to help me to believe in him and whatever, all of that. And that belief kind of just naturally drifted away. It's not like I just said like, okay, I'm not going to believe today. And so with this Pascal's wager, could a person like me even decide to believe in God, like for the life insurance? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really think so. And the
Like-
verse that comes to mind is, "It is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this not from yourself. It is what is it? It's a gift from God,
Yeah.
not through works,
Yeah.
so no one can boast." I mean, that verse to me basically says that it's a gift from God. You
Right.
can't, so how could you apply Pascal's wager and just like decide, like, do you think you're going to trick God and like into believing that your faith is sincere?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly that. I don't think so. I can't just say like, okay, God, I believe in you, and like somehow fool God into saving me.
Yeah. I
And
think
I
that,
slide into heaven like, guys, I like didn't really believe, but I just used Pascal's wager and it got me right in.
tricked him.
Yeah. Right.
I feel like it would create such a discord. Is that the right word? In your head?
Oh,
a
yeah.
cognitive dissonance.
Right.
That's the phrase that I was thinking of. In your head, if you were to live your life like just in the back of your mind being like, I'm just deciding I believe in Jesus because I want to go to heaven and have the benefits, but like really in your mind you're like, this is all, I don't believe in this, it's all fake.
Well, I mean, that we had that cognitive dissonance for a while, and it like we just couldn't sustain it. I don't think a lot of people really can.
No, I don't think so. So, okay, back to the consequences. What were some things that we really noticed, you know, that we were free from? Like the types of things that we didn't realize we were suffering when we were Christian, but when on the other side we realized that, you know, this was actually a trap or whatever. This was bad.
Yeah. I think because of our religion, I had way too much of a, like, what's that opposite of a superiority complex? I like had way too much respect for authority.
Oh, you were too submissive.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I feel like the Bible and church and everything, the whole structure of the church and all of that, like really encourages you and teaches you to have a really high respect for authority.
And you debase yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I put myself below, like my youth leader, put myself below my pastor to like be open to learn from them, below teachers, and like the elders in my church I held in really high regard. But even besides like, people in my day-to-day life, I like put way too much weight on the Bible as authority. But yeah, and then like discredited my own intuition and my own like inner wisdom and stuff like that.
Or just your own worth.
Yeah, my own worth. So yeah, like because of my belief in God and because I wanted to follow the teachings of God in the Bible, I was living my life as like a lesser than person to a lot of the people around me.
I think it's weird in church and even with friends, there is a hierarchy that's not necessarily set up, but you feel that way. I think we've mentioned it before, when you're around someone who's, you know, had a longer walk with Christ than you naturally
like
fall,
testimony.
you naturally fall below them, you know? And I felt it a lot. There was a lot of hierarchy and stepping outside, you know, of in the world. One of the things I had to learn was that I'm not better than anyone. I'm not worse than anyone.
Yeah.
I'm just a person, and we all can be people together, you know, and like just learning to just respect each other and not like size them up. Like everybody, you're better at something than I am, and I'm better at something different than you are. But
and it doesn't matter.
After a while, that just equalizes us out, you know? And even when you're meeting, like, I don't know, a celebrity, whatever, like, we don't need to feel that we're worthless than someone. And then on the other side, we don't need to feel that we're better than someone.
Right.
We just need to feel like we all can relate and we're people. We're just people, you know?
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. I think you're
like church involvement really somehow trains you into like ranking yourself.
Yes, but based on like experience or like
how holy you
authority, how holy you are. Yeah.
How involved in church you are and stuff. Yeah, it's weird. And like constantly grading yourself against other people based on like your standing with God.
And I didn't realize that at all until we came out. I keep saying out on the other side, and I realized I have terrible self-esteem. And I know we've even chatted with a lot of you who feel the same. We both had terrible self-esteem. I mean, that's like...
I didn't even realize it.
No. I realized I had terrible self-esteem, but I didn't know where it was coming from.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying... The church isn't involved in, like, all of my self-esteem issues, but it is involved in a large part.
Right.
You know, part of it, like... how the Bible views women. You know, I did always feel that I'd rather be a boy. I thought that men had more power, and I felt jealous of that. And then I just, you know, it makes you feel insecure in the ways that you were saying, that like you're always sizing yourself up against another Christian.
Right.
And even just the fact that God says that we are worthless sinners, or that we are sinners. You know, that we started out and we inherit the sin of Adam. Yeah. You know, that just makes you feel crappy. Right. Like you're born into this world, like already
like
evil.
Damaged or like bad. Messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
You're broken. You're broken. You know, it's okay. You're broken, but God can fix you. Right. You know, it's just not like, it's just not a good way to start your self-esteem.
Right. Yeah. So like just by being a Christian, you kind of take that onto yourself. And that sucks. Yeah, that's like a huge consequence. And again, like all of this, I feel like, of course, you can have problems with your self-esteem and not be Christian. But I think like what we're saying right now, these things definitely don't help.
No.
And like fundamentally believing that you're broken and that the only way you can be whole is for an invisible God to fix you. Like that's a crappy, crappy
premise
hat to put on.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like to have to carry that with you. That sucks. That's like a huge consequence.
And I think I noticed some people are maybe better at focusing on the positive, and the positive is that Jesus saved you, right? Like, I mean, if you're a Christian, that's your positive. But there's people who aren't equipped like that, or maybe who focus on the negative, and I've seen the effects in people in my family or friends that they focus on the fact that they are broken.
Right.
You know, and they don't, and the church doesn't give you any good, like, tools to stop that thought, because they're not going to stop it. They're going to be like, well, yeah, that is true, but maybe don't focus on that so much. You're saved now. But like, if you constantly have something in the back of your mind like that, it's just really damaging, we've found.
Yeah, for sure.
You need to stop that thought. And every time you think it, or any kind of negative thought that's not true, you need to evaluate it. You know, is this true? Am I broken?
Is this helping me?
Is this helping me? Like, to focus on this? Yeah, like maybe I'm not perfect, but I wasn't like born into this world to be evil, and like I wasn't born to be damaged.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't need anyone to save me besides myself.
Yeah.
All I need is I just need love from myself.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. But then the problem with that is that like not only do these beliefs from Christianity really affect you negatively, at least in my case, I felt like good about myself when I like talked myself down.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like I was so worried about being prideful or self-centered that like I kind of felt like I was being holy or righteous when I would pray to God and be like, oh, I'm like so broken. Thank you so much. I need you. You know, I felt like that's such a good trait for me to have.
Yeah,
to
humility.
Humility. It was like, I thought it was humility, but it was like humiliation. It was like humiliation.
It was too much.
It was way too much. I just had no balance of like what's like a healthy self-respect and self-love.
Yeah.
And maybe that could have just been the churches we went to, but I mean, like, reading the Bible, I don't think you're going to come out feeling very good about yourself.
No.
And
you even read, there was this one book, I think it's pretty popular actually, called Humility.
Yeah, by Andrew Murray.
Oh, yeah. And that book, I feel like it's talking about the same thing, right?
Yeah,
that we're talking about now. Yeah.
Make you feel real bad about yourself.
Great. It's great.
But I loved that book. I read it a lot, and I really took that to heart. It sucks. It's weird that I didn't realize that I like thought so little of myself until we left. And then like 2 years later, I realized, holy cow, I have like really bad self-esteem. And I never even like thought about my own self-worth, really.
Leading into that, another consequence we found was being scared to trust yourself.
Yeah, such
on
a
the
big
other
one.
side, and not really having the skills to think critically about decisions.
Yeah.
Even small ones. If you're always asking God for help and always trying to listen to his guidance, you're not really in tune with, how to answer those questions on your
For
own.
yourself,
You feel that you need this God
Right.
who has, in your mind, been answering. But really, we found that we were actually answering all of those questions, and we were answering ourselves, and our intuition was actually guiding us, and we just called it God.
Yeah.
But it's that still you don't realize that, and
Right.
so when you leave religion, you're like, oh my gosh, like how am I gonna? How do I decide these things? I don't have anybody helping me anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have this person who's helping me.
You really like give away your personal power to God when you decide to be Christian.
Yes.
I mean, I actually remember that crew prayer. It said in the prayer, like, Jesus, I give you the throne of my life. Like, take control of my life and guide me as you see fit, or something like that.
Wait, Jesus, take the wheel?
It was Jesus, take the wheel. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But seriously, it's like you're literally, praying that prayer. You're like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm giving you authority in my life. And that's weird. That's like a huge consequence, of course. Like,
yeah.
It's a big deal. That's not nothing. You
yes.
know?
And I mean, some people say, well, I trust God a lot more than myself. And like, okay, fine. I just decided that I don't want to trust this person who was starting a lot of wars in the Old Testament and killing a lot of babies. So,
or who never does anything.
Yeah, that's less harsh. Yes.
Right. Right. Yeah. Another one that was really big is conviction. The conviction of the Holy Spirit taught us how to be guilty.
Yes.
I feel like maybe not taught us how to be guilty, but it taught me to really pay attention and give my guilt a lot of weight. We've been like meditating and reading about like the power of your thoughts and stuff, and basically like you can decide which thoughts you listen to and which thoughts are helpful for you and which ones aren't and stuff like that. And I think as like a side effect of trying to live a holy, like sanctified life, I would pay so much attention to any guilt I felt at any time for things and like assign so much meaning to it. Like if I was supposed to have finished something at work and I couldn't get it done in time and I'd feel guilty about it, that wasn't just like, I should probably finish that. That was like God telling me, like, you need to be holy and like you need to do the right thing.
Do other people not have that strong of guilt?
I don't know.
I feel guilt for everything.
Yeah.
I feel like guilt. I mean, I guess we were trying to be holy. I feel guilt when I do anything less than perfect.
Yeah.
I feel so bad.
Yeah. And I feel like for sure, like focusing on our sins so much and like feeling guilt for our sins and paying attention to that and like using those as an indicator of when we're doing something wrong and we need to ask God for forgiveness, that like totally must have trained us to like feel those feelings so easily.
I'm sure. It's so sneaky.
Yeah, it is.
All
sneaky.
of these things are really sneaky.
They seem harmless or like maybe even good. On the surface.
It's good to feel bad when you do something wrong.
Yeah.
That's
the Holy Spirit.
That's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, right.
Pulling at your heartstrings.
Your heartstrings.
I don't know.
But like a big part, I mean, I feel like it went from guilt into like shame. you
Yes,
know, and like
yeah.
shame around sexuality. That was a huge consequence that we experienced of believing in God
I
or
think-
following Christianity.
I remember my uncle writing a little ebook about shame, and I think that Christians in general don't want you to go too far into shame. But it's interesting that they would have to talk about it, because I think it is such a consequence.
Right.
It's such a fine line, having what is healthy guilt, and then going into shame.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's a pitfall a lot of Christians fall into.
For sure. I mean, we're taught that we're fundamentally broken and evil at our core. So, like, why wouldn't you feel a bit ashamed of yourself? You know?
I don't know.
Yeah. So that's another one. I mean, I don't know that shame is ever healthy, like, but I feel like that's something
No.
we have to deal with, and we're like recovering from now and certain things, you know, and like recovering from shame around sexuality has been a big deal.
Yeah, that's
taken a long time.
It's a huge consequence.
Yeah.
I think that one is just especially, I think it's something that's maybe new. You know, like
What?
all of the purity culture stuff, is that, like, did our parents have to go through that? I know
think
that,
so, because like think about your parents and how,
Yeah.
you know, having a baby outside of wedlock was like super shameful.
I know. I wonder,
It's maybe even worse for them.
yeah, you're right. It's like, it's a different kind of purity culture. I feel like the things with crew and other, you know, what do you call them? Like Christian communities on campuses or in high schools and stuff, they really love focusing on the purity culture and having like accountability partners and
Yeah.
talking about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know that our parents really went through that, where they were talking about, I don't know, their sexual sins with other people. I
Right.
feel like they probably would have kept that more private.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
a good point.
And I
'Cause,
think like talking about it
like
with
obsessing over it.
with people who are, you know, you're supposed to be your mentors or your
Your
leaders.
authority.
Yeah, it does make you obsess.
Right.
I think it makes you obsess over it. And I think that it can ultimately lead to an unhealthy obsession with sex. I think that it puts sex on a throne.
Right, for sure.
I mean, you're talking about it so much that it's becoming like almost an idol.
Yeah,
like
right.
It's becoming an idol like of something you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
You know, it's such an idol of like, I need to stop this. I need to like, you know, take care
Avoid
and not
this.
avoid it.
Yeah.
And I think that I feel like it can make people like obsess about porn.
Yeah,
You know, even
right.
or obsess about masturbation.
For sure. No, it totally does. And I mean, I feel like that's a big part of why it's such a problem in church circles, or they say it's a problem because like they talk about it so much and they talk it up so much, how it's like the most amazing thing, but you can only do it in this circumstance and then it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But now it's evil. You know,
But then
it's like just too much.
I know. And if they did have somebody who was addicted to it, they don't have anybody like addiction specialists coming in.
No.
Like maybe in some churches, but like, you know, in general, what you do is you just pray.
Yeah.
And
right.
like that's not going to help somebody who's suffering from a true addiction.
Right, no.
You know, if it's really an unhealthy addiction, they need to seek help.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, I mean, sex is a thing, like a big problem. Like I think even we've heard from people like who have problems with their sex life because they held it, you know, so high as something they shouldn't do. And then when they're allowed to, it's like their brain is like, you're not allowed to do this.
Yeah,
And, you
right.
know,
Your
you're
body
ashamed
is
for
like-
this. This is bad.
Right.
Sex is bad. It's impure. Like, how are you supposed to have a healthy sex life after that?
Right. Yeah. No way. Well, and not to mention like just shame around your bodies or around your body itself.
Yeah.
And especially for women. I don't know
Yes.
if you've experienced that.
Oh, that was a big thing for me growing out of, and it felt really weird. Like, you know, if I would post, you know, one of the things that really helped me grow was wearing, sounds so weird, but like a little bit sexier clothes, like maybe a shorter skirt, or like I have a blouse and I unbutton it one more than I would before, but
Yeah.
like, and feeling like I'm a woman and I want to feel beautiful in my body, and I don't want to feel that I have to, you know, hide it
Yeah.
because creepy men are struggling with their sexual, you know,
I feel like our neighbors are like wrestling upstairs.
yeah, they're like slamming on the floor. Okay, but I don't want to feel like I have to hide it because I need to protect my brothers in Christ. Like
Right.
I always felt like that's their responsibility.
Yeah.
Like they could be just as promiscuous, and I'm not going to be like ogling over them.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
or maybe I am, and who cares?
Right.
But I had to learn how to feel beautiful and like even, dare I say, sexy in my own body.
Yeah.
You know, and that was something that changed, and And that was a change that I really love. Like not
Right.
feeling, I don't know.
Like ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, ashamed of who I was.
Or you have to hide.
Or being beautiful.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so cool to be out of it. It's not cool that you had to like learn to grow out of it. But like, again, that just like all these other things, you don't realize that that's what you're signing up for when you decide to be a Christian.
No.
But it's like all of these things really slowly tend to build in you, I think, after like years and years of trying to practice and be as holy of a person as possible. And so, yeah, they're really sneaky, like you said.
Another one that is one of my favorites is just like the consequence of being a Christian is your distrust of the world. And I love how we've broken free of that. Like on the other side, I never realized how much I had distrusted the world and how little faith I had in people and how I thought that everyone was basically like, I don't know what, just terrible. Like they didn't have any goodness in them. And this is weird saying it because of course there's got to be people outside of Christianity who are good, but I didn't realize to find people who were better than Christians or like have more, they seemed more whole or
like conscious
and everything, and like more loving, without any kind of judgment.
Yeah.
And I love so much. I think that Christianity really blocked us from a lot of the resources and just beauties in the world, like books or doctors or counselors or different kinds of mentors. You know, if it wasn't a Christian author, if it wasn't a Christian doctor, if it wasn't a Christian movie, you don't trust what it says.
Right. That's how we used to think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of subconscious too. It's not like anyone was like, don't watch anything that's not from a Christian director.
Yeah,
or
we
whatever,
didn't have that strict of parents or churches.
Some people do.
Yeah,
that's true. But like, I don't know, you get to a point where you're so obsessed with your religion that you only want to watch stuff from that.
Yes.
That's how I was. Like, I didn't want to read anything that wasn't from a Christian author because I knew I could trust the Christian author.
Yeah, and they had the most wisdom.
Right.
They were probably inspired by God, so that was the
That's
best.
what I
He's
thought.
the highest, like, author
the best doctor
of health. I don't know, whatever, like, change.
Right.
But,
it really like it just kind of goes along with feeling set apart from the rest of the world, which when I was a Christian, I really felt like I took pride in being set apart from the rest of the world. I think I had some of those NOTW, not of this world, like shirts.
Yes.
And bumper stickers for my car and stuff.
Well, yes, we definitely took pride in that.
Yeah.
I think we always liked being outsiders.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you guys don't understand.
Like the
We're the chosen ones.
Yeah.
But I think all of that stuff, leaving the fold and going out, I was so amazed by how much help and how many rich resources there were.
Yeah. How many good people there were.
How many good people.
Yeah.
How much I was missing out.
Right.
I'm missing a lot.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest consequences of being Christian is having to put your Christian filter on everything. You really miss out on a lot of beauty that is in the world, like through people, knowledge, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Just, I think like I learned not to take the world for granted.
For sure.
Now, on
For
the
sure.
other side.
It feels so good to be on the other side now and feel like I'm at home in the world.
Yes.
I think like the longer you're in Christianity, the more of a Christian filter you have on your eyes, just because you've been in it for longer. So you're kind of like training yourself to think that way for longer. But the saddest part is that what you're essentially doing is like brainwashing yourself to not trust anything except for Christian stuff, not trust the world. And to you, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like you're being a really good Christian.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel like there's any downsides, or at least it didn't for me. Did
no.
it? I mean, not for you either.
No, of
right?
course not. Of course there wouldn't. It doesn't feel like any downsides at all. It feels like you have the answer to life.
Yeah, but like the more you go, the more and more closed off. The more and more closed off I was getting, the longer I was in it.
Me too.
And I didn't realize it until we started to leave, and I was like, whoa, there's so many awesome people out here that I never would have like even given the time of day because they weren't Christian.
Yes.
Like people from different spiritualities or people with like weird science backgrounds, and they're talking about some weird new theories they have, and now I can listen to that and I can take what I want from it, or I can leave what I don't want.
That's a big one, actually. The whole just science, politics, and other religions. Like, there is a lot of knowledge and a lot of things going on in the world with those things that you're closed off to, you
Yeah,
know, like
for sure.
your faith makes you vote certain ways. Your faith makes you listen or not listen to certain types of science. And then obviously, if you're a Christian, you're not going to be taking any knowledge from other religions.
Right.
I mean, maybe you would, but you'd be really skeptical of it.
Right. For sure. Yeah.
And, there are a wealth of knowledge, there's a wealth of knowledge outside of Christianity, and that's really cool. And I think that that doesn't mean that we're now getting sucked into all of these ideologies. It's just really freeing to be able to, like you said, listen to something, use your mind to critically assess, what is helpful, what is not.
Trust ourselves to be able to make that call.
Yeah, and then take what's helpful and apply it to your life.
Yeah.
Or just learn and have be like astonished and astounded by the knowledge and be happy to learn things just for the sake of learning them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Each of these things, it really feels like each one is like a chain that was around us,
Yes,
and like coming out of this recovery deconversion process was like the process of taking each of those chains off slowly, and like some of them I think we still have some work to do, getting rid of certain thought patterns and certain ways of thinking and ways of seeing the world and people and stuff.
Yes.
But like we've dropped so many, and each one that we do drop is so motivating to keep going and keep digging in and keep, going deep on this stuff.
Yeah.
Figuring it out.
I think one of the things you mentioned before was how you felt so set apart. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a consequence as well, because it becomes really isolating.
Yeah.
I think the further and further you get in, I think you're not able to relate to the world. Well, in fact, you separate yourself from them. Yeah, and you look at other people as someone. I think that you can look at them with love, but you also look at them as someone who you can harvest.
Right, for sure. Who you're like trying to bring them to your side. Mm-hmm. Like you view them on another side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how that was affecting me until we left. And I remember being in the car one day with you and like talking about this and furiously writing in a note, like, I feel so changed. Like I feel as though I can relate to so many more people now. I feel connected. Yeah. And it feels like in a humanity standpoint, I feel connected to humanity. And I don't know, it feels great. Yeah. Like I never realized I was missing out on that.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. I had something similar, and I think I told you about it like a couple of months ago, and I was thinking about how sometimes I see people say to others, "You are loved." Like, no matter who you are loved, and I used to always think that was kind of like, I don't know, wishy-washy, or like, that sounds nice, but is that actually true?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. But since leaving Christianity, I feel so connected to humanity, and like the idea of every person on the planet is loved and they're worthy of love just because of the fact that they're human and we're all human, that like made sense to me for the first time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I remember when you were going through that.
Yeah, it felt so good. I was like, wow, you know what? I can actually start to believe that now, that everyone is worthy of love. And it's just for the fact that they're like a living being. Mm-hmm. It's not based on anything they think or anything they do. Even it's just, we're all human. We're all in this together. We're all the same. Like, everyone's worthy of love. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Feels good. Feels good having these, like, little wake-up moments and realizing how closed off I was to that kind of thinking before.
Mm-hmm. I remember walking down the street one night after a movie and seeing this girl, and I don't know why she looked really cool. Like, she had tattoos and, like, mm-hmm. piercings and stuff, mm-hmm. and I was just like, hey, I'm on her team now. Like it wasn't, if it was this realization that, and I'm not saying that you can't have those things and not be Christian. I just felt like a person who before I would feel I had no like connection to because they weren't Christian, I could feel connected to them now and I could be on her team. Yeah. And I could be on anyone's team now because I don't have a team. Right. I'm not on a side.
That's cool.
So like I can be on your team. It's like in high school, that kid that was able to be friends with every single group. Yeah. I feel like that's possible. That's a
really good point, because we're not in a group anymore.
No.
We've shed one thing that separate us, or a bunch of things that separate us from everyone else.
I'm sure we still have things that separate us,
course.
But I feel like I don't have to judge my a person based on that. Like, oh, are you Christian? Okay, I can be friends with you now or whatever. Are you not? All right, let me tell you about my testimony.
Right.
But,
crazy. That's a big one. You're
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
There's a real separator between me and everyone else.
Mm-hmm. And it didn't feel good.
No, it never did feel good.
No.
I always felt like an outsider. It feels good to be, part of the human team now. So another big downside, or a big negative trait, I guess, that we took away from our time being Christian was that we're so over preoccupied and so paranoid of our thoughts. And I feel like that just kind of goes hand in hand with the idea that God or someone is constantly listening to and monitoring your thoughts at all times. I know for me, I was like so preoccupied with my thoughts all the time when I was Christian, trying to make sure they were pure and, whatever, as holy and godly as possible.
Yeah, trying to be pure, I think, is the big one. I feel like I was constantly monitoring myself or feeling guilty just based on thoughts.
Yeah,
and I think
mainly based on thoughts.
Yeah, because it's just such a thing. Like, we talk about it all the time. We talk about it in church and crew and Bible study, having impure thoughts, not just about sex, but just like maybe about like you judge someone or like dislike someone or, are angry at someone and like sin. So you're like, you're always, I feel like, just looking out for that sin, and it's hard to stop it. Like, you are in your mind, like if you're constantly feeling like you're sinning just in your thoughts, you're so focused on sin all the time, and that also debases you, and you feel so guilty all the time. I mean, here's the connector. Like, here's where all of your like guilt, like fear, like low self-esteem, like it's coming from like sin, and then constantly monitoring your sin, even down to a thought.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. It's like, it makes you neurotic.
Yes. Yes. Dude, we came out being neurotic and anal.
Right. Yeah. Like so I don't know, just so concerned, like so in our heads all the time.
So in our heads.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually a big one.
Right.
That's probably why we're that way.
I know. I'm sure it is. I mean, I like literally had a practice for a while. I read some book, this like little tiny book. I don't remember what it's called now. It was a Christian one. And it was like an instruction manual basically on how to like pray to God constantly the whole day and like be constantly confessing your sins as you committed them in your mind. And, that's crazy.
That messes you up
so
psychologically.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I was like a crazy person. I remember sitting like at my job, like programming on the computer and like catching myself having thoughts and like closing my eyes and praying and asking God for forgiveness.
What?
Dude, that's so nuts,
That makes you feel so bad as a person if you're constantly focused on your sin the whole time.
Right. It's just crazy. Like, I feel like the biggest thing that we found was helpful for that was meditation.
Yes.
Just like kind of first step is realizing how much your mind is just spiraling.
Oh,
and I
yes.
really feel like
that was big for me.
My mind was like going 1,000 miles an hour a lot when I was Christian, because I was living in this world, but I was like way more concerned with the invisible spiritual world around me. It's wild. Yeah,
you're not present. You're like in your head. And that can even happen, like, well, we learned that pattern, I think, from religion. But, like, you can learn that just from being a neurotic person.
Yeah,
like you can
scrolling
just be that
Instagram all day.
Yeah, like the biggest, I can't even believe how big of a difference it makes when you just simply notice that you are spiraling.
Yeah, that's like most of it, that's so beneficial.
You notice it, and then my favorite practice is you notice that you're thinking or feeling, and you just say, this is from the Headspace app, but you just say thinking or I'm feeling, and then try to go back to whatever you were doing. And that like has helped me so much.
Yeah.
So much.
Did they talk about like you just label your thought and like let it drift away and then go back to whatever you're doing? Yeah. It's so cool. Especially
if you're like in the middle of doing something else it does not require that thought right now,
Yeah. Yeah. Intrusive neurotic thought.
Yeah. You don't need it.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like that's definitely something we could have picked up from our Christian training.
Yeah. It's definitely a negative consequence of being in the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that went along with that is naivete. Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
I was very naive. I always was really self-conscious of it, and I didn't even realize how naive I was until I'm still learning how naive I am, actually. And that makes me feel like a child in a world where I should be an adult.
Yeah,
I'm 31 years old. I feel like I should be a woman, you know, and now I feel sometimes like a little girl.
Yeah,
and the
like
things
we're
I'm
growing
still
up.
learning about, I don't know what, but if you come at everything with a childlike faith, and I realized pretty sheltered. There's a lot of things that I didn't like mature in until I was older. And and that was a big realization coming out.
Yeah.
You know, this is why I always felt so insecure and naive. It was because Christianity had sheltered me from a lot of things, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not talking about you need to like go out and do drugs and like have crazy sex, but it's not that.
Yeah,
There's things like in the world that just learning how to be a human or an adult, or taking care of situations, being in arguments, and learning how to stand up for yourself or apologize, taking responsibility for your actions, learning how to love yourself and your body, learning how to respect others without judgment. I don't know, there's just so many things.
Learning how to respect yourself as like an adult.
Yeah. Listening to your thoughts, reparenting yourself.
Right.
I don't know.
All that stuff.
All kinds of things.
Yeah. So it feels good to know how naive I was, and know now that there's still tons I don't know, and I'm sure I'm naive in a lot of areas, but I know that I'm growing, and I know that I'm learning and getting better. And there's like no limit to how much we can develop. Yeah. So yeah, that's our short list of negative consequences that we experience from being Christian, and I'm sure there are more, and I'm sure they vary from person to person.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically we realized that Pascal's wager doesn't make any sense, because there are definite downsides here on our life during our time on Earth to being Christian.
And you don't want to waste it.
No, you don't want to waste it on a bet. You know,
on a bet with Pascal and God.
With Pascal.
And I think one of the things too that we were saying this morning is, it's strange, like, why are we given free will and then punished for using it?
It doesn't make any sense.
It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't seem like he's worth following, and there are big consequences if you decide to follow him. So,
and a lot of positives on the other side.
Right. Yeah.
All right, we have 2 announcements before we go. The first one is we started a Patreon, and this was something that was really difficult for us, being people who had race support in the past and hated it, and also really have struggles with talking about money, and feel like money is the root of all evil because of things we learned in Christianity, or all of the guilt out of tithing. I don't know. It was really hard for us to make this Patreon. But so we're making a Patreon. We want to say that, like, if you felt like shame or guilt for not tithing, or felt like you needed to give money to your church, then don't feel that way with us.
Yeah,
and
please don't feel that way.
Our podcast is always going to be free, and so is our Instagram. You can always talk with us there, and
our website and all that.
And we're even thinking about doing a Facebook group in the future. But we're just putting it out there that you don't have to feel that you need to give to us. If you'd like to support us that way with money, then feel free to. But like, we never want to make anyone feel guilty about giving ever again.
So I think on our Patreon, we're going to put the episodes up a day early. We thought they'd be like early service. And
Sunday morning.
They'll be there on Sunday morning, so that you can listen on your Sunday mornings instead of going to your old church.
Shh, don't let your parents hear.
Right. And I think we might have some other stuff on there too. We haven't talked about too much like rewards or anything like that. Again, we didn't want to make it feel like we're trying to sell you anything.
Yeah, we don't want to be too salesy.
Just if you feel like you've been impacted or like what we're doing and feel like you want to support us, then you can go to our Patreon and do that.
Yeah. Another way you can support us is share a podcast with people who might also be struggling with the same thing. Of course, we don't want you to share it if you don't want to come out as non-Christian yourself. So definitely don't do that if you're not ready, because you will receive some hellfire for it.
Yes. Yeah. I can guarantee it.
But if you can, please share our podcast, or please be a part of our community on Instagram. And then look out for also a Facebook page possibly in the future.
Yeah. Right. So then the second thing we wanted to talk about was we're going to have a meetup here in Brooklyn. And we're planning it for the 14th of July.
And that's a Sunday.
Yeah, it's a Sunday. We'll do it Sunday morning. And we kind of just thought it'd be cool to meet up with people in person and talk about this stuff face to face instead of just over the internet.
Yeah.
Again, check out our Patreon and our Instagram, and we'll let you know more details about that and how to RSVP and what we're doing and all that stuff.
Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah. All right. So like always, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.